Hello everybody, welcome back. Today I managed to get the Dodge engine started for the first time since its rebuild. Anybody who's seen any of my earlier videos from this year knows that the Dodge had an overheating problem on the way back from Blyth Battery, and it's been off the road for the rest of the year while I've been poking around with various bits and pieces and eventually stripping the engine down. I checked the thermostat first of all, and I also used an infrared thermometer to check that the engine temperature matched the gauge. Everything seemed to match. I was getting water flow around the radiator, but the engine was still overheating when I was driving it. I did notice a slight little bit of oil in the radiator water, so I suspected maybe the cylinder head gasket was leaking. So I decided that the engine had to come apart and be investigated further. While I was doing that, a few people on the forums mentioned to check the water transfer tube, which is a tube that runs from the water pump back into the engine block and distributes cold water to each of the cylinders. When I did pull the engine to bits, I found that that pipe was loose in the engine block and that some of the water could well be bypassing the pipe rather than passing through it. So the pipe itself was fine. It wasn't corroded or blocked up or anything. So I cleaned that, repainted it, and I fitted that into the engine block with some JB Weld epoxy, which has sealed the hole at the front of the block where it fits into to make sure that all the water from the pump has to go down through the tube to the cylinders. So with that done, I was able to refit the pump, then put a new head gasket on, refit the cylinder head, all the other bits and pieces around the engine that mount onto the top of the engine block, fasten the radiator cowl back together, put the fenders bolted back onto the radiator grille, and today was a big day to give it a first try. So after turning the engine over on the starter with the ignition off a few times just to get some oil circulating around the engine because it hasn't been run since I think it was mid-June, I then turned the ignition on and went for a start. It coughed at the first attempt, which frequently happens when I take my foot off the starter button. All the amp rushes to the coil and gives the plugs a sudden boost, but by that time the engine's slowing down its turn, and so it tries to fire but gives up. Second press of the starter button and off it went. It ran happily. I ran it for about half an hour in the garage and out on the drive. Generally a little bit above idle, but I did some faster RPM runs and then took it for a drive up the drive to the front of the house and back again, partly to put a slight bit of load onto the new head gasket, but also to turn the tyres because it's been again sitting there since June and I didn't want it to be sitting on the same spot in the tyres back in the garage again. So the engine run all went fine. The temperature without the thermostat fitted rose at 240 degrees. I left the thermostat out for the time being to rule that out as any possible cause of the overheating until I've got a little bit more running time on the engine. I did test it back in June and it appeared to be working okay, but I thought it was worthwhile just to leave it off for now, and then I could rule that out as being any part of the overheating problem. So after it was shut down, I went for lunch, came back out to the garage and found a big pool of water all over the floor, which wasn't encouraging, but it turned out it was just one of the radiator pipes had come loose. The gasket seal that I put around the joint had actually acted like a lubricant and caused the pipe to slip off the water pump. So I cleaned all that up, bolted it back up again, refilled the radiator, and it's all been fine since. So the next tests, well, I've got to let the engine cool down and re-torque the cylinder head nuts and then give it another run. I need to get some fuel before I just consider going for a drive because the tank's virtually empty. And then I'll be sticking to some fairly local runs around the house, just sort of, around the village, fairly nearby, so that if I do encounter problems, I'm not too far from getting home. So it's going to take a little while to build up my confidence again that the overheating problem's sorted. But I'll report back in a week or two after I've done some more testing. Hope you enjoy the pictures and the brief video of the engine running. Thanks for watching. Please consider liking and subscribing if you enjoy what I do. I know I've got quite varied interests in my hobbies with both military vehicles, astronomy, working in the garden, railways. So I hope it's something that you enjoy watching and give me a thumbs up. Thank you. See you next time.